If you like gardening roses, you and me, we're friends. While I have 3 rose care masterclasses under my belt, I'm still very new and there's a lot to learn, which is exciting. Maybe it's a condition of being in your 30s, but I really love learning. As soon as I feel like I know everything there is to know, I'm bored, time to move on. That's the thing with gardening is the more you know, the less you know. There's always something to learn. You know, one of the biggest lessons that I've learned is it doesn't really matter how much research or education you receive, nothing really beats firsthand experience. And often, the most valuable learning experiences one can have is through failure. If I'm right, I don't learn anything. But it is very hard to accept and embrace failure when it's in your own garden. This is your sanctuary. You put a lot of love and labor and money into it. Of course, you don't want to fail when the stakes seem so high. I've been there. It sucks. I don't want to mess up. So what I do is I play a game, so it's a little less abrasive on my ego. Would you like to play one of those games with me? I thought you might say so. We're gonna play my favorite game that gives me anxiety. It's called Is It a Sucker? What is a sucker, you might ask? That is a very good question, and we cannot play this game without knowing what is a sucker.
Rose suckers are punk bitches that grow from the rootstock of a grafted rose, often stealing nutrients from the main plant. Here's how to spot them. A sucker emerges from below the graft union, that knobby part near the base of the rose, and it grows from roots or underground stems, not from the main rose canes. A sucker will have a different leaf shape or color, often smaller, lighter, or more saturated than the main rose. It can also have up to 7 leaflets, while regular roses have about 3 to 5. Thorns are more numerous or differently shaped, straighter, sharper, or denser than the main rose. The growth habit is faster, more aggressive than the main plant. It appears away from the main stems, often at the base or a few inches away. If it flowers, it may be single-petaled and less showy than the grafted rose. It also might be a different color, white or pale pink, sometimes this dark maroon. So in short, suckers are vigorous, thick shoots that usually grow straight as an arrow or slightly at a curve.
So now that we have the information to be able to identify a rose sucker, now we're going to learn how to play the game. You and me are going to go into my garden and we're going to look around. We're going to pick out 4 very suspicious looking canes from 4 different rose bushes. We're going to decide together if they are or are not a sucker. If we vote yay and we say this is for sure a sucker, we're gonna get rid of it. We're gonna hack and slash. And it is important to know how to get rid of a sucker for sure. You cannot just cut at the base, no. You must get below the soil where that sucker is emerging and you gotta rip it out with all your strength. In theory, this cane should be fairly weak, so you should be able to rip it off real good and easy. If we vote no, that cane gets to stay and live another day. Are there any stakes to this game? Well, kinda. Now you might be asking yourself, what happens if we accidentally vote yay on a water shoot, a healthy cane that wasn't a sucker at all? Well, not much other than some guilt and regret on our part, but the bigger risk is if we don't identify a sucker and get rid of it. Because what happens is, if a sucker stays long enough, that cane will eventually send out more shoots and it will take over the plant. Like what happened to my very first rose. Rest in peace. Okay, now that we know how to play, are you ready? Alright, let's go to the garden.
So first, let's look at my Queen Elizabeth rose. It has a very long, vigorous, suspicious cane growing straight up. So let's check our list to see if this might be a sucker. We'll look at the base of the root. Well, it's kind of coming out of the top of the mound. The stalk is lime green, but the thorns do look consistent. There is a cluster of blooms at the top, normal size, normal color, 5 leaflets, normal coloring, normal size. So everything looks normal, but it's that straight up, very vigorous, thick cane that's lime green that really seems like it's a sucker. But all things considered, looking at all the facts, I don't really think this one's a sucker. This one can stay. Next, we'll look at our Eden climbing rose. I planted these in January, so about 6 months ago, and they've gotten quite tall. We're gonna look at some canes that are growing right behind this post. So right off the bat, we can see this is a very vigorous cane growing straight as an arrow with a second one right behind it. Now, red-colored leaflets are a sign of newer growth. And when we get really close, we can see that there are up to 7 little leaflets on each nub. The thorns look pretty normal in pattern and in size. None of them strike me as needle-like. So far, it's pretty hard to tell. This could just be a water shoot. This is a younger rose. The real deciding factor is going to be down in the dirt. We need to see where the cane is emerging from. And just like the other rose, it's growing from right above the root graft. That's unusual for suckers, but not impossible. These 7 leaflets are pretty suspicious to me. They don't quite all look the same. When these stalks sprang up, the other side stopped producing blooms. However, it is July, and blooms will slow down around this time of year. So now that we have all the facts, we gotta decide. Is it a sucker? And the answer is, I don't know. If it looks like a sucker, talks like a sucker, it's probably a sucker. But it could also be a water shoot. I don't know. This is my favorite game. Let's go ahead and cut it down. Next, we'll look at Orange Glow. This is a knockout rose. It's a small, shrubby little rose bush, and it's pretty young. I probably planted it like 3 months ago. Let's interrogate this suspect, shall we? Where does your stalk emerge from? I want answers! Suspicious. Let's do some digging. Above the root graft, eh? A likely story. Do you guys think maybe I'm just paranoid? Because look at the leaves, everything is consistent through the plant, so that should signal that it's a basal growth. I should just let you go. But this is the Are You a Sucker game, and I'm a paranoid gardener, so I'm gonna cut you down anyway. Alright, moving on. Who's next? Well. If it isn't my problem child, whose name I can't really pronounce. This is, Zephirine Drouhin, and she's got a lot going on. This is the very first climbing rose I ever got. I've had her for maybe 2 years, and within those 2 years, she's given me a total of 10 beautiful blooms, and that's it. So look at this guy, right? It's kind of hard to see, but there's a cluster of these pin-straight shoots going on. And some of these canes have thorns, which is weird because Zephirine Drouhin is a thornless climbing rose. And when I'm comparing the leaves of the older stalks, they're definitely a lot smaller than the other side. These are very big and juicy. The leaflets only have 5, but you know, the coloring is pretty different too. But to know for sure if this is a sucker, you know what we gotta do. We gotta get dirty, baby. And guess what? These are all growing above the rootstock too. I'm starting to think I'm just really paranoid, so I'm just not sure. But I think it would be better to kind of cut some of these down anyway to increase aeration, and just in case, because look at this. Look at this. That looks like a sucker to me. It's also very flimsy and weak, like almost kind of rubbery. So that this side makes me feel a little bit more sure that I'm making the right choice in cutting these off. Do you guys think I'm the real sucker? Because I don't feel good about any of the choices that we made here. They were tough choices, and I'm glad we made them, but I don't know.
Wow, what a fun game we all probably lost. We hate this game. It's the worst game ever, but we have to keep playing this game because the only way to get good at this game is to keep playing this game. And we have to keep playing this game. And we have to get better at this game. But we'll do it together. What's that you say? You want to know what causes a sucker? Who knows? Sometimes it's stress, sometimes it's over-fertilizing, sometimes it's too cold, sometimes it's too hot, sometimes they don't like the soil, sometimes it's because their roots got disturbed, and sometimes it's just because they felt like it. It just be like that sometimes. Even though we all lost the game, every failure is an experience, and we get to learn from that, and that makes us all winners.